They brought back Ozzy Alonso and Jan Gregers. And oh, by the way, Maria actually looked like a world beater in the attack.
We have a strong group here in Minnesota. We have a lot of fighters, and I think it's just going to be a grind.
Oh, my word! Finley plays the ball across. Maria with a header! Oh, he's done it! And Molino scores!
A meeting of two rivals on neutral ground. One has plenty that are familiar with the surroundings, but no one is unfamiliar with what we have here in front of us here today. Welcome to the MLS is Back tournament presented by Heineken. Callum Williams alongside Kyndra, D. St. Aubin and Kyndra. No doubt it's been a really unfamiliar scenery across the entirety of the footballing world for the last 3 or 4 months. What have you seen?
Well, first of all, it's nice to be back socially distanced from you at our separate tables here, but we get to be in Allianz Field in the Stadium Club, and it is. It's been a strange time for everybody right now, but that's the biggest point to me is that everybody has been going under the same circumstances. So as you hear coaches and players and everybody else talk about this tournament, MLS is back, getting down to Florida. It's really to me about the fact that it's a level playing the field in the sense that everybody has been having to deal with the same issues over the last 3 or 4 months, and everybody's itching to get back and playing soccer again.
So prior to the stop of play back in March, Minnesota United and today's opponents, Sporting Kansas City, were flying high in the Western Conference. Kyndra, why were these two sides at the peak?
Well, for two very different reasons, I believe. Sporting Kansas City made some changes, and they knew they had a 2019 that they would like to forget. Minnesota United, on the opposite side, was riding the momentum of 2019. They finished, obviously losing in the first round of the playoffs, but made it to the playoffs for the first time ever. So you had two teams coming into 2020, maybe a little bit knowing what to expect, maybe not so much, but you can see Minnesota's results right there. The offense was flying. The defense picked up right where it had left off. And sitting in second place, you can see there with both at the 6 points, sitting at the top, but that goal differential, Sporting Kansas City getting a little bit of a bump there with the goal differential, sitting in first in the Western Conference to wrap up those first 2 games. But a little bit of a break, a little bit of a reprieve, and now time to regroup. And let's see how these teams come back after that 3 or 4 months and a short stint down in Orlando training in the heat before they play the match tonight.
What were the main differences that you noticed in those first 2 games, the victory against Portland and San Jose Earthquakes, compared to the 2019 iteration of the Loons?
Well, for me, it's the front 4. I mean, Luis Amarilla, they bring in a target forward, a number 9 that can do it all. I mean, he knows how to score, and it was a big addition up top for Minnesota United, for the Loons, to be able to have an attacking player that can read the game so well, not blasting crazy speed up top, but he reads the game, he knows how to get off the back shoulder. He can head the ball, he can find the space. And Molino, I thought him and Molino worked really well together. So the fact that Minnesota wrapped up 2019, 10 goals in their last 11 games, we were wondering where that offense went a little bit to wrap up the season. The defense held steady during that time. As I said, defense picked up where it left off. Luis Amarilla in the fold, Robin Lode getting his feet underneath him, and Kevin Molino healthy, creative underneath is a very big piece for this offense.
So rumours and whispers were aplenty just before the Orlando tournament was finally announced and details started to emerge. And finally, Minnesota United had some clarity with what was going on throughout the remainder of the 2020 season. Here's how the tournament will work, at least how we've been told. Teams divided into 6 groups. 3 group stage games count towards the regular season. That's the big incentive. But perhaps even more so, Kyndra, the winner gets a hefty chunk of change and a berth into the Champions League.
Yeah, that CCL berth, I think, is going to be a big piece of the puzzle for these clubs because normally it's a very long and drawn-out process once your regular season starts to continue that tournament and try to get that CCL berth. This is like a fast track to get that berth into a very important tournament for the next year. And I think Minnesota United is going to have the eye on the prize. I mean, everybody's going there to win. It's just going to be a matter of once you get out of that group, if you get out of that group, how far are you going to make it and how far do you want to be in Orlando? Do you have a chance to win it all and do you keep on going?
How important was it to have something, some sort of prize to play for from a competitive and a motivational point of view for the players?
Well, I think all the players and the coaching staff are competitive for every club. But if you know that you're going to be putting yourself really in harm's way, you're traveling across the country, you're going into your own bubble that MLS has done a fantastic job of creating. But at the same time, it's important, I think, for Minnesota United and all the clubs to understand that there is a prize at the end of this. There is a meaning behind it to get to the end of this tournament, to make that trip, to make the sacrifices from their families, from maybe their pregnant wives, they're leaving people at home, maybe they're from other countries. And I think it was important to have that. Not only that, but those group games had to count towards the regular season. That was another important piece to the puzzle.
So we had the details. Minnesota then just waited for their opponents. Eventually, the schedule was released and Minnesota United were drawn in Group D alongside the likes of Sporting Kansas City, Colorado Rapids and Real Salt Lake. Kyndra D. St. Aubin, let me ask you this. Is this the group of death in this MLS is Back tournament?
It is, in my opinion. A lot of people were picking Group F. You got LAFC, LA Galaxy, and of course, you have Portland thrown in there, Houston a little iffy in their first couple games. People were labeling that the group of death. I think it's Group D. I think it's Minnesota United, Colorado, Real Salt Lake, and Sporting Kansas City. 3 of those 4 groups after the first 2 games, 2-0 on the season, 2 head coaches that are really in their first full season as head coaches of their squads, trying to get right the ship with RSL and Sporting Kansas City. And then we all know, Sporting Kansas City or Real Salt Lake in Colorado, and we all know what Sporting Kansas City has done in the first 2 games with Peter Vermees. So I think that this is the group of death for me. This is the group with the momentum, and this is going to be the one where any 4 of those teams could advance.
It's a rejuvenated Sporting Kansas City, Colorado Rapids even as well under the stewardship of Robin Fraser now, but Freddy Juarez of Real Salt Lake. I think many people, if they were to identify a weak link in the group, without being unfair, many would point towards RSL, would they not? Yes,
absolutely. And the way they started the season, I think they had 1 goal to their name in their first 2 games and, 2 draws on the season, and that goal barely came about. So I think Freddy Juarez has his work cut out for him there, and that would be the weak link out of the 4.
MLS is back and Minnesota United are back, and they are just moments away from getting underway against Sporting Kansas City. Stay with us, still plenty more coming your way on this MLS is Back tournament presented by Heineken. Pre-game showcase brought to you at Allianz Field.
Catch them if you can! O'Tara. Forward now for Marino, who's in!
Minnesota United take on Sporting KC July 12th at 7 p.m. in the MLS is Back tournament.
Big games, Steve, big goals!
Tonight's preview show is presented by Allianz. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota, and M Health Fairview. And a very warm welcome back to the MLS is Back tournament presented by Heineken. Minnesota United this evening up against Sporting Kansas City. Callum Williams alongside Kyndra D. St. Aubin. And we said in the introduction there that Minnesota United have several individuals that are more than familiar with the surroundings, having plenty of ex-Orlando City contingents in the roster. One of those, of course, is the head coach of Minnesota United, Adrian Huth, who perhaps has already had a little bit too much of Orlando.
We've been down here, it seems like an eternity. It's only 10 or 12 days, but just like everybody else, looking forward to getting back to playing football. That's what we do. and it seems to be in an awful long time to get round to this situation. I think, like the players, I'll be glad to get the games back underway, and let's see if we can hit the ground running like we did in the regular season. That's going to be the big testing point for me, I think, and our staff, is what condition the players are in. Having spoke to one or two coaches since we've been down here, that's probably the area that we're all a little bit concerned in. The amount of time that we've had off, and the fact is that there's nothing that replicates playing games to get that sharpness and that fitness. So that's the one area that I think there's a question mark for most of the teams until they've played, of what condition are we in, and how is the group. They've trained exceptionally well in all this in the last 2 or 3 months. It's been terrific from the players, and as I say, just hopefully we can pick up where we left off, because we had a terrific start to the season. Yeah, I think experience is going to be really important, and I think that obviously the mental aspect of when you've been out so long about playing, getting everybody motivated, keeping everybody on the same page, letting people realise we're back to work now, and this is going to be really important for us. The people like Ozzy and Jan and Boxy, Romain, these people who've been through it over a season campaigners, they're going to be really big, and not just for us. I think for all the team, the experience is going to be very, very important over the next 2 or 3 weeks. The one thing I do know, no matter what we do training-wise, it's very, very difficult to replicate what the game gives you. Obviously, with the water breaks and the fact that we've got more subs, that might help as an influence of what we do. But until we actually start the game, like most of the teams that haven't played, we're never 100% certain of where we are in our physical situation. You hope that you've done the necessary work, but until we actually get in the cut and thrust of the game, that is going to be the question mark.
Intriguing words from the head coach of Minnesota United, Adrian Heath. And Kyndra, from a psychological point of view, how difficult is this going to be on the players?
Well, I think it's going to be a big challenge. And the only thing I continue to hearken back to is that everybody has had to deal with the same circumstances. And I think that's why the coaches aren't using it as a crutch. They're not using it as a bailout for how they may come and perform on the pitch. They know that every team has had to deal with the same situation. Every state's been a little different on when they've been able to return to team training, but they've gotten down to Orlando. They're all in the bubble. They've all had to deal with the same kind of testing, the same kind of heat, the same kind of lack of 90-minute play, whether it's yourselves against 11v11, an inter-squad scrimmage, or an opposition of an 11v11. None of them have been able to do that. So I think that's the biggest concern for Adrian and for the players, is how are we going to fare? And you really don't know until you step on the pitch tonight against Sporting Kansas City. That first 15 or 20 minutes may be a bit of a feeling out process. It could be super frenetic, or it could be kind of chill. I feel like it could go really either way, depending on how the players are feeling going into this match.
Well, stepping on the pitch this evening is Minnesota United, and this how the starting 11 looks. Adrian Heath did say in that piece we just saw, Kyndra, that experience will be vital. Minnesota United with 2 gargantuan absentees this evening. We knew Ike Opara wouldn't be playing a part in the tournament prior to this. We're told earlier today Ozzy Alonso failed a fitness test. He's unavailable for this game. In comes the able Hassani Dotson, and an MLS Minnesota United debut for Jose Aja.
Oh, well, and I think everybody knew, at least going into the tournament, as you stated, that Ike Opara was going to be missing this tournament, at least for the group stage games. So Jose Aja has been playing and partnering with Michael Boxall throughout training, a guy with plenty of MLS experience, just new to Minnesota United, playing overseas as well. And then Hassani Dotson, thank goodness. He's a second-year player now. We don't have to call him a rookie. We don't have to vote for him for Rookie of the Year. But I think the fact that he proved himself time and time again in multiple positions, got lots of minutes in 2019, next to Jan Gregush, that we can feel comfortable with him there. Will you miss Ozzy Alonso? Absolutely. Has a little bit of a niggle he's dealing with. Didn't feel like it was forcing the issue here in the heat. And now you've got Robin Lod and Ethan Finley, 2 players who were on fire heading into the break. Ethan Finley getting on the scoring sheet as well. And then, as we stated before, Kevin Molino sitting underneath Luis Amarilla. That partnership, excited to see that front 4 again.
It's back. My word, it feels so good to say that it's back. MLS is back, Minnesota United are back, and we are moments away from Minnesota United getting their tournament underway against Sporting Kansas City. Stay with us.
Van der Sar, a goal from your man, from the man. Catch them if you can.
Minnesota United take on Sporting KC July 12th at 7 p.m. in the MLS is Back tournament.
Big game, Steve, big goals!
Tonight's match preview show is presented by Allianz. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. And M Health Fairview. And welcome back into our match preview show. MLS is Back, presented by Heineken, and Minnesota United's participation in it just moments away. Callum Williams alongside former Gopher soccer star Kyndra D. St. Aubin. And one of the stars for Minnesota United over the course of his last few years here has been Ethan Finlay, who spoke to the media just the other day and, as always, was full of competitive nature.
Well, we want to win the tournament without a doubt. You know, whether we're a betting favorite, no, I don't think necessarily we are. You know, we're missing a defender in the year in Eichel Para, unfortunately. But we have a good group. We have a competitive group. We have a team that has depth. Like you said, we have a team that can score goals. And I think we haven't maybe seen as many goals as we would have thought so far in this tournament. But I think as time goes on and as heavy legs get going and get heavier, you'll probably see more goals. And I think when I look at our offensive group, I like our setup, top to bottom. Yeah, so, you touched on something that's very unique, right? The way this tournament is set up. Yeah, there are 3 regular seasons games, but, we have to manage it in a way like a World Cup style. And, that will be interesting, how Adrian and the staff decide to manage it, whether it be, the formations they put out there, whether it's the substitution, things that he does. So we'll see. I think, we're prepared for it. Like I said, we've touched on, multiple different setups of our team and different players who could play different positions. I think you're going to need some of that in this tournament. The heat is going to be a great equalizer. Even if you do play, late at night, it is still quite humid here. So I'm excited. Yeah, there's only 3 games that are guaranteed, but this group's coming here to compete, and we hope to go a lot farther than that. Yeah, it's unfortunate we haven't been able to get a real full 90 in. That's even something. Even if you try to do an inter squad, it's just not quite the same. Playing against another opponent for the very first time will be Sunday for this group. So, there could be a little bit of a slow factor, obviously, in the first 5 to 10 minutes. I think we've seen that in the games that have already been played. That it takes a little bit of time, and it might not just be 5 to 10 minutes. It might take us longer than that, unfortunately. But I think we're very, very much prepared from the physical side of this. We put in a lot of work, and I think our group is ready for that. It's going to be a grind. We know it will be a grind. And, once you kind of come to terms with that and you get into it, it makes it a little bit easier.
He just wants to play, doesn't he? The boy just wants to play. And Ethan Finlay will get the chance on the right-hand side of midfield, as we understand today, Kyndra. Familiar territory for him. Today we're assuming he's going to go up against the likes of Luis Marin, the Portuguese left-back for Sporting Kansas City. How does Ethan Finlay get the better of him today?
Well, what I've seen so far, and he talked a lot about match fitness in 90 minutes, not having the 90 minutes, maybe changing formations, changing how is Adrian going to use substitutions, not necessarily in this game, but as the tournament goes on. And what I've seen in the game so far is who is on the front foot early. Whatever attacking midfielder, or outside midfielder, I should say, or outside back for the team that's on the front foot early is the one that forces the issue. We saw it time and time again with San Jose against Seattle the other night. Whoever is on the front foot early, if Ethan Finlay can force the issue, be on the attack early, force them to stay on the defensive side of the ball and get in, I think that's going to be the key. So he's the aggressor. He's the energy. He's the Energizer Bunny. We know that he has an engine like no other. So for me, Ethan Finlay getting on the front foot, taking his space out wide. If he can cut in and find Luis Maria, Kevin Molino, and combine and get the ball back, we saw them do that so well in the first 2 games against Portland and San Jose of the regular season. Find that space, get to the end line when necessary, make those overlapping runs if needed, and combine centrally. Force the issue, be on the front foot early, both with Robin and Ethan. Two very different wingers, in my opinion, and how they play the game. Robin liking to cut in a little bit more. I think that's going to be the key. And knowing Ethan Finlay, he knows one speed and he goes it all the time, and he's going to be on the attack. He's going to want to force that issue and make the opposition play the defense. And
just finally, Kyndra, we came into this tournament with Minnesota United given a fair amount of praise. Mm-hmm. Why was that?
Well, I think that Minnesota United has just struck a chord every year, 3 years now, and plus. They've made improvements to the roster. Adrian Heath has said, stick with us. Keep adding additions, making changes to what they needed to do from the attack standpoint, from the defense standpoint, from the midfield standpoint. And all of a sudden, 2020 started. They go on the road, 2 road games, and absolutely demolish the competition. I think there's a mindset, there's a mentality with this group, there's a confidence with this group, a camaraderie with this group that we have not seen the last 3+ years, and a leadership style from this group. So everything to be in the right mindset. What was supposed to be the 25th anniversary of MLS, and our home opener coming back to Allianz Field is now starting out in Orlando with this first tournament for Minnesota United. MLS is back against Sporting Kansas City.
MLS is back, Minnesota United are back, and now they face Sporting Kansas City. Be sure to tune in on the television on ESPN to watch the game, or you can join us on the radio on Score North in the Twin Cities. Thank you very much for watching our match preview show. 2020 has been a rather bizarre year. Not many things have gone the right way for people. For Minnesota United, they couldn't do it, could they?